With a rustling sound, I threw away the birthday present Bob had given to our daughter, Catherine, into the trash can.
What are you doing? Say sorry now.
With a fierce look, my mother-in-law, looking like something out of a horror movie, glared at me.
Did you see the content of the card?
As she looked at the card, she began to tremble. Admittedly, discarding a gift from a loving father into the trash without handing it over to Catherine was wrong. However, after seeing the content of the card, there was no way I could happily give it to Catherine. Catherine is only 4 years old. She's in the middle of her preschool years, and she's at her most adorable. Everyone, including Bob, both our parents, and all our relatives, are totally smitten by her. She has received so many gifts, and I'm truly grateful for them. For some reason, Bob bought a separate gift and kept it a secret, not even telling me what it was. I was excited to see what was inside, not just for Catherine but for me as well. But now, the nature of the gift didn't matter anymore. I am Mary Johnson. I met Bob at a friend's wedding reception. When everyone was slightly tipsy, we played a bingo game. Both of us called bingo at the same time, and that's how we met. There was only one sling bag as a prize for the bingo, which he really liked. I gave it to him, and we agreed to meet another day so he could buy me a different one. That's how our relationship started and quickly led to marriage. It seemed very fast, but Bob was 30 and I was 32. Our ideal was to have 3 kids, so we thought the sooner, the better. Both my parents passed away early, so I was the only one from my side during our family's first meeting. As soon as I started my greeting, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, you came alone? Don't tell me you're one of those with an unknown background?" That was way out of line. She doesn't even know about my family background. There are things one should and shouldn't say. My mother passed away when I was in high school. I wanted to get along with Bob's mother just like I would with my own mother, but she immediately put me off. Bob told her, a bit angrily, Mary's parents just passed away early. But her sarcastic comments didn't stop. Aren't you older than Bob? Can you even give birth to a healthy baby? It was clear she had serious reservations about me marrying her son. Bob and his father tried to reason with her, but she wasn't the type to back down.
Joe, Bob. She might be a nice woman, but I don't think she's right for Bob. He could find someone younger and prettier, someone just perfect for him. Not some late bloomer with an unclear background.
The more she spoke, the worse it got. I pretended to check my phone and made up an excuse that work was calling, so I left. Later that night, Bob called. He apologized for his mother's behavior. Both Bob and his father promised that this wouldn't happen again. Deep down, I thought I could never be happy if she didn't accept me. But if Bob and his father acted as a buffer, maybe things would work out. I accepted Bob's apology. Finally, we got married. It was a small but beautiful ceremony. All of Bob's relatives were very welcoming, and I felt grateful for the experience. Even my mother-in-law was very kind and thoughtful that day. I thought, this must be the real her. We can get along. After our wedding, things felt more optimistic, and we went on our honeymoon to Hawaii. When we returned, we immediately visited his parents with souvenirs.
Thank you for your support during our wedding. Here are some souvenirs from our honeymoon. They're not much, but please enjoy.
I gently placed a box of cookies and a bottle of wine on the table. Famous Hawaiian cookies and wine which I thought his father would like.
If it's not much, then maybe you should take it back. Usually, when you give souvenirs to parents, you'd give something more thoughtful, you know?
I was taken aback by my mother-in-law's cold words. My father-in-law seemed equally shocked, his eyes wide. Snapping back, he chided, "Hey you.
When Sarah went to Hawaii, she brought me a designer bag and cosmetics. Of course, for you too, right? And she even gave Bob some nice clothes. Remember?"
Sarah is Bob's childhood friend, a lovely woman 5 years younger than him. Even though she's not a relative, she attended our family gatherings and wedding, which made me think they must have been close. Bob, with a grin, chimed in, "Yeah, Sarah did go all out." She gave me clothes and a wallet. I'm still using that wallet. Seeing Bob enthusiastically join his mother's narrative made me feel alone, as if no one was on my side.
Sarah is so thoughtful. I've been using her gifts for years, and you too, right, Bob? Every time I use them, I think about how wonderful she is.
Indeed, Bob's wallet did seem well worn. I had thought of getting him a new one for his birthday this year.
Enough about Sarah. Can you tell us about your honeymoon? I'm more interested in that, my father-in-law interjected, noticing my somber expression.
I gave him a thankful glance. I gave my father-in-law a knowing glance, conveying my gratitude. After that, there were occasional snide remarks, but aside from that, we were able to spend our time harmoniously. I think it was all thanks to my father-in-law. From then on, my mother-in-law would call at least once a week, asking about Bob, if there was a grandchild on the way, and talking about Sarah. It was mentally draining for me. Especially the questions about having a child. Bob and I had been trying to have kids, and we even visited a local gynecologist to improve our chances. It turned out that due to Bob's health, it might be challenging to conceive. We were discussing potential fertility treatments. Fertility treatments are physically and financially draining, and I worried about managing it with my full-time job. My mother-in-law's pressure, combined with having no close family for support, felt overwhelming. In the midst of all this, Sarah paid a visit. I hadn't thought highly of her, given how my mother-in-law and Bob always sang her praises. But after talking to her, she seemed genuinely nice.
Don't worry about it. Bob isn't the type to be bothered even if he doesn't have kids. And I'll make sure things are smooth on my end with you, his mom.
Although I had reservations about her due to my mother-in-law and Bob always praising her, after talking face to face, I realized she genuinely was a kind person. Our conversation lightened my mood and made me more optimistic. Perhaps that shift in mindset worked wonders, as I soon found out I was pregnant and later gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Bob and both our parents exclaimed, "A long-awaited girl." Bob's parents, who only had one son, had probably wished for a granddaughter. Everyone doted on her, and she quickly became the apple of everyone's eye. Our daughter, Catherine, grew rapidly, moved from daycare to kindergarten, and seemed to play with a lot of friends every day. I returned to work, and my weekends became busier. Whenever I wasn't around, Bob would take Catherine to his parents' place. Whenever I could come home early, the house would be empty. On the occasions I finished early, I'd usually meet up with them at Bob's parents' house. Feeling reluctant but doing so anyway, I headed over to his parents' house one day.
"Mary, it's good to see you. It must have been a long trip. Thanks for coming, especially if you're tired,"
greeted my father-in-law, welcoming me at the doorstep.
Bob, Catherine, and Sarah went shopping together. They might be playing in a nearby park. I hope you can relax even if it's not comfortable here.
I had hurried home, only to find out that not only Bob and Catherine were out.
And what's the deal with Sarah going along too?
Well, it can't be helped. Having nothing else to do, I busied myself by tidying up parts of the house and pulling weeds from the garden, careful not to interfere with my mother-in-law's space. Around 6 in the evening, Bob, followed by my mother-in-law and Sarah, returned.
"Hey, Mary. Didn't know you were here. We went shopping with Catherine today. Got lots of toys and clothes, all thanks to Mom and Sarah."
Bob, hands full of shopping bags, was followed by a delighted Catherine. Then, trailing behind, my mother-in-law and Sarah made their entrance.
"Oh, Mary, you just decided to come without calling? We're fine without you, you know. If anything, you're in the way."
She began with her usual snide comments.
"Catherine even said she prefers being with Grandma and Sarah over you. She said that even though you didn't buy her any toys today, Sarah did, and she's happy. She likes Sarah more than you."
Such words, even if not truly spoken by Catherine, hurt deeply. With a full-time job, the time I spend with Catherine is limited, and from a disciplinary perspective, I can't always buy her everything she wants. But to be told she prefers someone else over me, especially Sarah, was heart-wrenching.
"Moreover, I heard you didn't want to have a child. Sarah told me. Even though Bob was considering treatments, you didn't want to because it would mean more work for you. You returned to work, so you probably don't want any more kids. Sarah was lamenting how a cute child could have been born.
I was shocked beyond belief. I remember confiding in Sarah about our struggles to conceive due to issues with Bob and whether or not we should consider fertility treatments. Sarah had hinted that she might tell my mother-in-law, so what was this all about? Blinded by Sarah's amiable demeanor, I spilled all our marital concerns to her. My vision blurred with disbelief. Too stunned to speak, I was jolted back to reality by Catherine's words, "Look, Mom. I got this pretty thing. Clothes with ribbons and flowers. And guess what? Aunt Sarah got me the toy I wanted for my birthday." I realized Catherine's 4th birthday was coming up next week. I had planned to buy her the present she had been wanting on a day when I could leave work early. She had been asking for a doll, and I had decided to buy the doll along with some clothes for it. Had she already gotten it? I searched for Sarah to thank her for the gifts and to verify what I had heard from my mother-in-law. But she seemed to have left without a word. That night, I tried my best to hold it together, and we went back home, just Bob, Catherine, and me. On Catherine's birthday. I had hoped to celebrate just the 3 of us, but we were invited by Bob's parents. I wasn't keen on going after the traumatic events from last week, but seeing the excitement on Bob's and Catherine's faces, I reluctantly agreed.
Bob, Mary, and Catherine. So glad you could make it. Happy birthday, Catherine. Come on in, we've got a feast and cake ready. And of course, presents too.
Catherine, with a gleeful yay, darted towards the living room. She was excited about her presents. Before even touching the birthday meal, she was all over the mountain of gifts. Looking at the beautifully wrapped presents made even a parent like me excited. Among them was a notably large gift, which was the one Bob had chosen. Reading the card attached to it made my blood boil. And I threw Bob's gift for Catherine into the trash bin.
What on earth are you doing? Apologize now.
My mother-in-law, with a face contorted in rage, stared me down.
Did you read what's inside the card?
As she read the card, my mother-in-law began to tremble. Sure, throwing away Catherine's present from her father was a big no-no. But after reading that card, there was no way I could have given it to her with a smile on my face. Catherine, now 4 and in the prime of her preschool days, was the darling of the entire family. Everyone adored her, Bob's and my parents, and all our relatives. She had received plenty of gifts, and I was grateful for that. For some reason, Bob had gotten her a separate gift and wouldn't even hint at what it was. I was as eager as Catherine to find out what it was. But the card changed all that. The relatives present were equally puzzled.
Bob, what's the meaning of this? The card says, from Dad and Mom Sarah. What's that about?
Yes, the message card said, from Dad and Mom Sarah. I presumed they bought it during their shopping trip last week. It was probably the electronic piano Catherine had wanted. It's pricey, so we had planned to gift it to her when she started elementary school. But it seemed they had already gone ahead and bought it.
I don't know anything about that card. I haven't touched that gift since we bought it last week.
Stumbling over his words, Bob began to make excuses.
It's not about that. You've been bringing Catherine here all the time. And you both keep mentioning Sarah. Were you having an affair?
My rage got the best of me, and I yelled, momentarily forgetting we were in front of family. The realization that he could have been cheating all this time suddenly put things into perspective. Despite my reluctance, Bob often took Catherine to his parents' house without me. He had stopped talking about our treatments once he began visiting his family more. He used to be more considerate about my relationship with his family, but once he started making these solo trips, he would only say I didn't have to join if I didn't want to. And there was more. As my anger grew, I was interrupted by a familiar voice.
Hello. Happy birthday, Catherine. Did you like the present? You wanted that electronic piano, right?
It was Sarah's carefree voice. She and Bob had indeed bought the present together.
Sarah, hello. What's this about you being Sarah Mama?
Sarah looked taken aback, probably surprised to see me there. Sarah probably thought that my husband had told me about his relationship with her, and she assumed I'd be too angry to show up.
Oh, it's you, Mary. How've you been? What brings you here?
I wonder if, during this past week, my husband had promised Sarah he would tell me about their relationship. That's why she thought it would be just Bob and Catherine celebrating her birthday.
Well, I'm here because I'm Catherine's mother and Bob's wife. And who are you to act so brazenly?
I was fuming at Sarah's audacity, acting like nothing was wrong. If this were a comic, steam would be shooting from my ears, or better yet, my head might be depicted as exploding.
You're just some older woman. Bob never really got along with you, and he's always had a thing for me. He probably just married you on a whim, but he truly likes me. I'm younger, prettier, and way better than a disliked woman like you.
So this was the true nature of the ever-friendly Sarah. When you turn things inside out, she's just a wicked woman in disguise.
How dare you? So you're really a spiteful woman. How foolish of me to confide in you. Everything I shared with you was probably relayed verbatim, or worse, twisted, to my mother-in-law, wasn't it?
Sarah burst out laughing, her laughter dripping with condescension.
Calling me spiteful is a bit much, huh? But maybe you're right. Being cute has its perks.
What a devilish woman. Appearances can be deceiving. She always seemed so kind, but her current expression was twisted.
Anyways, where's the thank you for the gift? If your daughter's gonna be my daughter, you'd better teach her some manners.
I was both furious and dumbfounded. I couldn't comprehend why she believed I'd divorce Bob and give up Catherine.
What do you mean your daughter? Even if we did divorce, there's no way I'd give up Catherine.
The thought of giving up Catherine was inconceivable. No matter how poor we became, I'd always want to raise Catherine by my side.
No way? You should ask her yourself. Catherine told me she likes me better since I'm kind and let her do whatever she wants.
Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. Admittedly, I wasn't a mother who spoiled Catherine. I would tell her no when necessary and tried to teach her the value of restraint by not buying her every toy she wanted. So, did she prefer Sarah because she was allowed to do as she pleased and received any toy she wanted? I was at a loss for words. Into this silence, a sweet voice chimed in.
I like Mommy the best. Sarah, you just like Daddy, right? You never hug me and comfort me like Mommy does. You only hold hands with Daddy.
Catherine's words were so precious that I hugged her tightly, tears streaming down my face. Children can see things more clearly than adults realize. I was overjoyed to know that Catherine recognized and valued the love I showed her.
My absolute favorite is Mommy. And Grandpa. Grandma shouldn't say mean things to Mommy. And I don't like Daddy or Sarah. Even when we go out, they just talk to each other and never play with me.
Kids are brutally honest. Catherine must have sensed Bob's infidelity. I was furious not only about the affair, but also about how it made Catherine feel.
Bob, what the heck? You've been cheating on me with Sarah. It's infuriating enough that you cheated, but to do it in front of Catherine is even worse. I'll just come out and say it before you do. Let's get a divorce.
My vision blurred red with rage, but I tried to speak calmly. Bob glanced around, as if searching for an ally among our relatives.
Wait, Bob, what's going on? You and Sarah were having an affair? And Sarah, didn't you say Mary was a terrible mother? That she was always harsh on Catherine, almost bordering on abuse?
I looked at my mother-in-law in shock. Did she truly believe I was abusing Catherine? Sarah looked alarmed. Bob was frantically looking around for help.
Bob, I've long thought you should have married Sarah. We could have had many more grandchildren by now. And didn't Sarah say you weren't getting along with Mary? Living in that cluttered house without much housework done, I felt sorry for you.
I was so taken aback, I couldn't speak. The two of them had deceived my mother-in-law as well. It wasn't surprising that she was confused since they had involved her without my knowledge. Listening to Catherine,
it doesn't seem like Mary is neglecting her duties as a mother. Mary, I apologize. I admit I was disappointed initially that Bob didn't marry Sarah and made some snide comments. But you always treated me kindly despite that. When I tried to build a better relationship with you and talk to Sarah, she told me you didn't like me and wished I'd just go away. Clearly, I was mistaken. I'm truly sorry.
I was taken aback by this sudden apology from my mother-in-law, but if she was constantly fed lies, it made sense she'd hold some resentment towards me. It's almost laughable to think someone as stern as her was so easily deceived. To say I could completely forgive everything she'd done would be a stretch. But judging from her tone and expression, it seemed she genuinely regretted her actions. So, I reluctantly accepted her apology, understanding she too had been manipulated by Sarah.
Understood. I'll let it slide. But if anything like this happens again, I'll cut ties with you for good. That said, I'm definitely severing ties with Bob.
In this mess, my mother-in-law and I were kindred spirits, both deceived by Bob and Sarah.
Bob, what have you done? You're the worst. Don't ever step foot in this house again. The same goes for you, Sarah. Mary, I'm so sorry. Can you ever forgive us?
Even my father-in-law apologized to me.
Sir, ma'am, please don't say such things. If I had many children with Bob, they'd be your grandchildren, right? Bob is your only child and heir to this family. If you disown him now, you might regret it later. Please, think it over.
Despite ruining everything, Sarah was audacious, still speaking up confidently to my father-in-law. I couldn't fathom how she could be so bold.
Sarah, how do you know we only have one child? It seems you hardly listened when I confided in you. Bob has a fertility issue which made it challenging for us to conceive. We miraculously had Catherine, but for siblings, we would need fertility treatments.
While it was a private matter, I couldn't keep silent anymore. For so long, both in-laws had made many remarks about us having only one child. Bob probably blamed me for our inability to have more children, leading him to lie to Sarah, saying any woman other than me would easily have his child. This was the first time I saw Sarah's face pale.
That's a lie. Bob said it was your fault you couldn't have kids. Stop trying to save face. I plan to have lots of kids.
She was desperate. She must have thought she'd oust the wretched me, become the heroine, and settle into the family. With no allies and having been deceived by Bob about his fertility issue, she probably didn't anticipate this turn of events.
Sarah, you liar. How much of what you said was true? You seduced my Bob, such a wicked woman.
Sarah looked shocked when my mother-in-law confronted her. She must have been confident my mother-in-law was on her side. She probably never thought she'd be accused of leading him astray, even if no one told her outright that it was a good thing she split from such a woman.
You're terrible. You've always said you wished Bob and I were married. How can you say that now?
Everyone glared at her, causing my mother-in-law to hang her head. But maybe she didn't want to be the villain.
I never encouraged an illicit relationship. That's beyond decency. Bob, what were you thinking?
Spotting Bob trying to sneak away, she addressed him firmly. Watching the chaotic scene before me, I felt exasperated. Poor Catherine's birthday celebration was forgotten. I decided to head home with Catherine and celebrate just the two of us. That night, Bob returned home. He wanted to talk and began explaining his side of the story, but I wasn't in the mood to listen. I told him that from now on, we'd be communicating through a lawyer, and had him take his belongings and leave. I consulted my company's attorney to ensure I didn't need to deal with him directly. Of course, I ensured monthly child support. Additionally, I received a substantial amount as compensation from my in-laws. It seemed my mother-in-law had gotten quite an earful from my father-in-law, and she was walking on eggshells. I told them an apology would suffice, that they didn't need to go to such lengths, but they insisted it was for Catherine's sake. Unable to decline their generosity, I accepted. As for my ex-husband Bob and Sarah, they've been ostracized from their families and are apparently living together somewhere far away. Given they were an affair couple, I thought they'd split up soon. But it seems they're eventually gonna tie the knot. Either way, they're no longer my concern. Living a happy life daily with my daughter, Catherine, is all that matters to me. Word of my divorce spread at work, but everyone treats me just the same. I don't feel any awkwardness, and life is pretty normal. In the midst of all this, a client at work asked me out, and I agreed to date him. He's also divorced with no kids and has mentioned wanting to get married soon, expressing a desire to give Catherine a younger brother or sister. Catherine too seems fond of the idea of us getting married. Before I knew it, she turned 7. While our family was dysfunctional in the past, I'm optimistic about us finding true happiness this time around.